Hey everybody, so as you all probably know, the playoffs start on Wednesday and we have some really fun matchups this year, and I think we're going to get to see a whole lot of great playoff hockey this postseason, and I absolutely cannot wait for it to start. Before it does start, I wanted to do a video here ranking each playoffs matchup in the first round. Basically, based on which series I am most excited to watch and really excited to see versus which ones I'm least excited to see and not really big into. And in the first round, you have 8 playoff series going on at the same time. You have a lot of games going on at the same time. You can't watch everything. So you kind of have to pick and choose. I'm going to follow this series and probably end up missing most of this one because they're going on at the same time. That's just how it is in the playoffs, especially in the first round mostly, because there's just so many games going on, all right around the same time. You kind of got to pick and choose what you watch and what you don't. So I'm doing this ranking not necessarily based on what I think is going to be the closest series or which one's going to go 7 versus which one's going to be over early. I'm basing it on what games do I think are going to be the most entertaining to watch. Which ones am I most excited to see? Which games do I think are going to really pack in the entertainment value and be fun to watch and exciting? Versus which series do I think are going to be a little bit more on the boring side, on the slow side. So this is, I want to watch physical, nasty playoff big boy hockey between two teams that really don't like each other. And it doesn't matter as much if the series goes 5 games or if it goes 7. If the games are exciting to watch, then I want to watch it. I think a perfect example of that is last season, the Winnipeg and Minnesota first round series only went 5 games, but that was one of my favorite series of the entire first round because it wasn't close. Winnipeg really dominated the entire series, but it was big, mean, nasty hockey, and it was really fun to watch. Those teams were all over each other physically, and it was really entertaining hockey and fun to watch versus the Columbus and Washington series in the first round last year. I didn't watch a whole lot of that series, even though I think 4 of those 6 games ended up going to overtime, and it was it was 2-0 Columbus, and Washington won 4 straight to win it in 6. But it wasn't an overly exciting series from my perspective. There wasn't that much animosity between the teams. It wasn't overly physical, and I just thought that series was a little bit more on the boring side compared to some others. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all 8 first-round matchups this year and rank them based on which ones am I most excited to see. And a lot of different things will play into that, but it's mostly about what I think the entertainment value of the games are going to be. How exciting is it going to be to watch versus, is it going to be one of those series that takes 4 games to really heat up and get going between non-rival teams, or is it a series that's going to be punch you in the face, smash mouth hockey from the get-go between division rivals? Because that's the kind of action that make the playoffs so great. So let's get into it here, starting with number 8, the series that I am least excited for in the first round this year is one that I think is not going to be a very long series. I think it's going to be over rather quickly. And that is the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Columbus Blue Jackets. There's no real rivalry between these teams. They're not, they don't play overly physical games against each other. And I think this one's over in 4 or 5. Tampa is just going to wipe the floor with Columbus. Columbus barely getting into the playoffs. I don't think they have much not nearly enough offense to keep up with Tampa. I think this is going to be a quick series, and Columbus hasn't been an overly exciting team to watch all year long. And Tampa can be really fun to watch when they play teams like Pittsburgh or Washington. They have grown Boston. They've grown some real rivalries with those teams where it's physical smash mouth hockey, and you're going to get scrums, you're going to get fights, big hits throughout the game. I just don't see that happening with Columbus. There's no underlying history with that team. And neither of those teams have really played much of that style against each other at all year. And, you know, unless something happens early on in the series, I don't see this one being that exciting. Number 7. Also in the Eastern Conference, also a wild card versus division winner. Washington versus Carolina. Again, I'm glad Carolina got into the playoffs. I really am. It's nice to see them in the postseason. Again, they broke the longest active streak of not making the playoffs. But I don't think they can stand up to Washington. Washington, the defending champs, just a much better team, deeper team, more physical team. I don't think Carolina has much for Washington in terms of a playoff series. This one also probably 5 games. And Carolina is not an overly physical team. They do have Michael Furland, which is certainly the most physical player they've had on their roster for a number of years now, but one player isn't going to stand up to the entire Capitals team. So I don't think that is going to be an overly great series to watch. And I definitely think there are better ones in the first round. So moving on to number 6. Number 6. You know, I'm going to go here. It feels weird putting this one all the way down at 6 because it is a division matchup. But Nashville versus Dallas. I think Nashville versus St. Louis would have been a much more interesting series and a much more fun series to watch, honestly. Nashville and Dallas don't really... Sure, they're division rivals, but they don't really have that built-up animosity, not to the same level that Nashville does with St. Louis. Nashville and St. Louis, when they play, it is beat-you-up hockey. So I don't think Nashville versus Dallas is going to be, you know, one of your better series to start. I think there are better ones out there and more exciting ones. And we'll move on to one of those more exciting ones right now. Sticking with the Western Conference. Ooh, this is tough. I'm doing this off the top of my head. I'm literally making these decisions right now. This is tough. It's for me, the 5th spot here is a toss-up between the Calgary-Colorado series or the Winnipeg-St. Louis series. I'm going to... see, I think Calgary-Colorado could be low-key really good. That one I think could be your under-the-radar playoff series, your unexpectedly awesome series in the first round that you don't really expect it going in. But every year there's usually that one matchup that you going into the playoffs, it kind of flies under the radar and you don't expect much from it. And then it ends up being one of the better ones in the playoffs. And I think Calgary-Colorado has a good chance to be that. So with that being said, I'm going to say Winnipeg versus St. Louis is number 5, just because I would have rather seen Winnipeg play Dallas and Nashville play St. Louis. That's what I was hoping for, because I just think that Nashville and St. Louis have such a great rivalry. I don't think Winnipeg and St. Louis are at the same level, just like I think Winnipeg has a better rivalry with Dallas than Nashville does as far as how those teams have played each other in the regular season. Winnipeg and Dallas have not gotten along this year at all when they've played. There's been some nice action between those two. So that moving on now. Now we get to Calgary versus Colorado. And again, I think this could be one of your most underrated series of the first round. I think this one could be really, really good. I think Colorado is good enough to give Calgary a run for their money. I do have Calgary winning it if you've seen my prediction video. But I think this is going to be a fun one to watch. Both teams can play real physical if they need to. And I think, you know, that this is the kind of series that even though they're not in the same division, it's going to get pretty heated pretty early, and neither of these teams are going to back down. So that is definitely one in my top 4 and one of my picks to be probably one of the, you know, most unexpectedly good series of these entire playoffs. So moving on now, we have number 3. We have The New York Islanders versus Pittsburgh Penguins. This rivalry has definitely cooled off over the last few years. If you go back to the early part of this decade, Islanders and Penguins absolutely hated each other. But it's definitely, that was almost 10 years ago now, and it's definitely cooled off since then. However, I think the perfect thing to pick this right back up is a playoff series between the two, and especially a close playoff series like a 2-3 matchup. So I think this one is going to be really, really fun to watch. Might take a game or two to get going, although I have a feeling that both teams are going to come right out of the gate banging and ready to go. And this one's going to be really, really fun. And I think it could be not only an extremely close series and really, really fun to watch, I think it could be a very, very physical series and something that really brings back the Penguins-Islanders rivalry. This one could be really, really good. Number 2, some of you might be surprised that this isn't number 1, because I'm obviously a Bruins fan. If if you watch this channel, you know that I'm from Massachusetts and a Bruins fan. But Boston and Toronto is my number 2. I think that obviously we're into, the best of the best playoff. I mean, all of these series are going to be good. It's playoff hockey. It's fantastic. So when we get into the top 4 here, we're into the best of the best as far as the playoff matchups go. So, this is still going to be phenomenal to watch, I think. And talk about a heated matchup. These teams absolutely hate each other. Boston and Toronto, I think over really the past 2 seasons, has really grown into one of the best rivalries in the NHL. There's always been that underlying, original 6, long-time, historical rivalry between these teams. But it's really, really picked up into, all-time levels the past couple of years between these two. And for them to meet in the playoffs for the 2nd season in a row, I mean, that is just as good as it gets. And I think this is going to be a really, really fun one to watch. And just high entertainment level hockey night in and night out with these two. But they're number 2, and that's because number 1, obviously, the only ones left, San Jose versus Vegas. I am excited for this. This is a series that will get me to stay up late. It's hard for me to stay up and watch the 10 o'clock or 10:30 games because they go till like 1 in the morning here in the East Coast. But this is a series that I will be watching as much of as I can until I finally get so tired that I have to go to bed. But division rivals met in the playoffs last year, just so close in the standings and so close to each other as far as, they're very, very evenly matched teams. They met in the playoffs in the 2nd round last year. They're meeting in the 1st round this year. I have this one going 7 games. I absolutely think it goes 7. I think this is going to be the best matchup of the 1st round, just as far as everything, closeness, entertainment value. I think it's going to be a really physical series. You have 2 teams that do not like each other. They played each other at the towards the end. I don't think it wasn't the last day of the regular season, but last week they had a game against each other, and it was a pretty, it was a nasty physical game. And these are 2 teams that look like they are ready to grow this rivalry into something special. And, Vegas just coming into the league last year, they have no, long history with any teams. It's not like you have historical rivalries with Vegas the way that, Calgary and Edmonton and Boston and Toronto and, Chicago and Detroit were before Detroit moved to the East. You have these longtime historical rivalries. Chicago and St. Louis, that's been one for a long time now. Vegas doesn't have any rivals like that. They don't have any traditional rivals. They have to build their rivalries because they're starting from scratch as a brand new team. Obviously, there's the natural rivalries with the California teams based on geography, Vegas versus California, but they need to play these teams over and over to build that actual hatred and actual animosity between the teams. after, last season, I thought it was going to be LA. I thought they were going to be the team that was Vegas's biggest rival, but then LA was just so bad this year and weren't playing meaningful games. That fell right off the map. It looks like it's going to be San Jose. San Jose looks like Vegas's top rival right now, and when these teams play, it is really good hockey to watch and really fun. So that is my top series for the first round, and I cannot wait to watch any of this action and all of it as much as I can. Obviously, with games going on at the same time, I can't watch everything, but I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna pick which series I'm watching, mostly based on these rankings, and I'm gonna watch as much hockey as possible over the next 2 months, because the Stanley Cup playoffs, I say again and again, are the best thing in sports. It is the best time of year, and I am absolutely excited for things to start Wednesday night. So those are my rankings 1 through 8 for the first round playoff series. Let me know what you guys think down below. What are your rankings? Put it right in the comments section, your 1 through 8 that you're most excited to see. Obviously, we're all going to have different opinions on that, and that is absolutely fine. No, it's completely subjective. What are you most excited for? That is completely your opinion. You could be most excited for Tampa Bay and Columbus, and that's dead last on my list. But if that's your most exciting series or what you want to watch, then that's completely up to you. So let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.